Hello and welcome to Run My Art. So, with Christmas just around the corner, have you put up your Christmas decorations? So, I thought of adding up some Christmas theme painting to the list of my decorations this year. And in this video, I'll be showing you how to paint a Christmas tree that is very glowy or golden in color with some shiny ornaments. So in addition to my normal watercolor palette, I'm going to be using a gold colored watercolor from Schminker as well as another medium which is some colorful soft pastel as an additional effect. So painting will be done on a 14 by 14 centimeter sized square paper of 300 grams per square meter thickness from Hanamul. And since I'll be using a wet on wet technique for mainly the background of the painting as well as the basic shape of the Christmas tree, I'm going to be using some masking liquid to cover up several ornaments on the Christmas tree which I want to maintain some brightness. So basically the masking liquid helps to conceal the smaller areas or smaller shapes from the main painting's pigment. So over here I am attempting to use a compass to sketch the ornament shape, which is a basic circle and is of 2 centimeters diameter. Well, you can actually sketch this without the compass. Since it's an ornament sketch, I thought I needed a very smooth looking circle. Well, unfortunately, I found it very challenging to draw a very small size circle using this compass. So probably you're better off just sketching it freehand. So I'm done sketching the larger sized ornaments. Now to draw the smaller size ornaments, I'm just gonna be using a basic ruler to measure the diameter and freehand style. Well, you can skip this sketching part and head straight to the part where I apply the masking liquid, or you can also head straight to the where the painting process begins. Now done with the sketch, I'm going to be applying this masking liquid which is in a form of pen. I used to buy a masking liquid in a bottled form, but then since I rarely use them, they often dry out quite fast. So I had to throw them away, and this time I managed to grab the one in a form of pen which is way much cheaper. I thought it would be much more convenient to use it. And the last time I used this masking liquid pen was somewhere in April, and ever since then I hardly used it, so I was actually struggling to get back the masking liquid onto the tip of the pen. So in order to avoid some mishap using this masking liquid which you haven't used in a very long time, I would advise you to test it on some other papers before you start applying it on the actual sketch or drawing. So notice my two large ornaments that I have applied the masking liquid on seem to have like a very unsmooth surface, which is a result of the dried masking liquid. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have some struggle removing them at a later part. Otherwise, this masking liquid marker is quite easy to use. You can see as I press it onto the paper surface, it just oozes out the liquid, and you can just control with not much fuss, and it's quite helpful since applying masking liquid with a brush can be quite challenging and time consuming. And for this painting, I have decided to leave out some of the Christmas ornaments from the masking liquid. I would like to paint it in a very freestyle manner. So once done with the masking liquid, just leave your sketch to dry for a few minutes. And just to show you how the masking marker looks like, is how the tip looks like. You can even swap it the other way around if you think the other side of the tip is worn out. So the masking liquid is completely dry, where you won't notice it sticking to your fingers, and we're ready to paint it. I have pasted it to maintain a white border by using a masking tape from Hahnemühle. So the first step is to pre-wet the entire paper with some clean water. You can use a mop type of brush or even flat brush to pre-wet your paper, but I am using a sponge as I feel the application is much more smooth. And here is the color palette as a guidance. So I'm going to paint the first color for the Christmas tree, which is a permanent green. Now we're going to paint the basic shape of the Christmas tree on the wet surface. And I'm not going to worry too much about the shape of this Christmas tree, because we're going to come back to that later and do more finishing touches. So just apply some simple strokes that creates an impression of the pine tree leaves. Next, I'm applying some strokes of olive green, which is already included in the color palette that I shared earlier. You can also use sap green for this, as long as there is some contradiction to the two green tones that we are using for this painting. And just a quick clean up with some paper towel onto the areas that were not covered by the masking liquid. So you want to quickly lift up the pigment with a paper towel, and over here you can see I'm pre-wetting the paper surface again, the one that is surrounding the Christmas tree, and quickly layering in the first color for the background, which is Sapphire. You can also use a dark brown or burnt umber. So just apply some light strokes of the Sapphire or dark brown onto the paper, and clean up those pigment that have bled into the Christmas tree painting, and soften any hard edges that were created by the Sapphire color pigment by lifting up the pigment with a damp brush. Second color for the background is yellow ochre. Just dabbing in a little bit of that pigment onto the background color and allowing it to mix with the earlier color, which is Sapphire. And over here I'm just trying to redefine the shape of the pine tree leaves or the Christmas tree itself, as the shape seemed to have distorted due to the color mixing. Can do this by lifting up the pigment and reshaping it using a damp brush, and please don't use a very wet brush because it will create more water loops and stain onto the original painting. And occasionally just clean up any wet paint noticed on the masking tape or on the masking liquid, because while it's still wet it can accidentally bleed into your painting while you rework on it. So I'm going to use Indian yellow as the first ornament color. You can see which is a smaller size ornament, which is next to the ones covered by the masking liquid. And take note, I am painting this while the paper or the original painting is dry. So basically it's a wet on dry method. Just paint them in a very simple manner. You can also reshape the ornament. And second color of the ornament is going to be a red, whereby I'm applying the bright red pigment first. And since this ornament is not in full shape and is behind the pine tree leaf, I'm painting it in such a way where the pine tree leaves shape is being created as I apply the negative painting technique using the red color for the ornament. So at this point of time, I realized that the background has dried to a very lighter pigment. I'm just re-wetting the background surface with clean water before I start reapplying the same colors onto it. So it is quite normal to repaint your watercolor paintings because watercolors usually dry much lighter than the original pigment applied during the painting process. So usually you will have to repaint at least twice or even 3 to 4 times depending the goal of your painting as well as the thickness of the paper. The thicker the paper, the more it could sustain the wetness of the pigment. And apart from that, while you work on the layers a second time or repainting it for the second time, you get a chance to redefine some of the subject matter of your painting. For example, over here, I get a chance to redefine the shape of my Christmas tree. You may also attempt to repaint your painting part by part. For example, you don't have to re-wet the entire painting or area that you want to rework on, but instead do it part by part if you're afraid that the water might dry off too quickly. This approach also helps you to repaint or rework on your painting in a very calm manner. Done with the sepia color, I'm also reapplying the yellow ochre and lightly blending the two colors in. While the background painting is still wet, I have sprayed some water from my spray bottle to create some extra effect. Now notice the spray effect that I made on the wet painting, and as it dries it will create a special pattern. You can skip this spray bottle step if you want to, but it's just that I love to create extra effects on my watercolor painting. Notice the pattern once the wet painting is dry, and this kind of effect is not achievable with brush strokes, so a small spray effect helps to add some value to your painting. Okay, now for the main subject matter of the painting, which is the pine tree. I'm using a flat brush and a mixture of sepia as the first color for the finer details of the pine tree. So I'm just using these brush strokes to create the needle-like shapes of the pine tree as well as its tree trunk. And you may be wondering, why did I choose a very dark brown or dark shade as the color for this pine tree? Well, remember, this is supposed to be a glowy, golden glowy Christmas tree. So if I apply a darker color for the pine tree, I'll be able to paint in the gold effect later on. And besides that, I am reapplying the other two green tones that we used earlier in my basic painting of the Christmas tree to give it some more character and variation in color tones. This would enhance the shadow areas and light areas of the Christmas tree. Over here, I am repainting it or redefining the pine tree leaves using the permanent green that I used earlier. Done with the permanent green, now I am applying the olive green as the third color to define the pine tree leaves. And I forgot to mention that it will be easier if you use a rigger brush for this painting process, so that it will be easier to paint in those narrow shaped leaves. And as you start painting in these two green colors onto your pine tree, you will notice that the Sophia that I painted earlier is not so obvious, and it acts only as a shadow or darker areas of the pine tree. Once your pine tree painting is dry, you may remove the masking liquid, which is going to be a small hurdle for me, mainly because of the mishap that I had earlier in this video. So gently remove your dry masking liquid. You can start off by using an eraser. You can rub off the dry masking liquid and gently peel them off. So I'm done peeling off the masking liquid, and just to show you the problematic areas. So these two particular ornaments which had a very unsmooth masking liquid application actually chipped off some part of my white paper when I attempted to peel off the masking liquid. So a gentle reminder, just be extra careful when you apply and peel off your masking liquid. Now I am painting one of the ornaments with crimson. You can choose any other red color choice of yours. In fact, you can go for other colors as well, for example blue. It's just that I felt that the yellow and red goes hand in hand to create a glowy effect on the Christmas tree. You can leave some white areas on the ornaments to create a natural light effect. But if you're uncomfortable doing it in such a small area, well, not to worry. You can also create the light effect using a white gouache or a white pastel. You can even use a white color pencil. As for the smaller size ornament, I decided to paint some of them with an orange tone. You can achieve this by mixing a little bit of yellow to your bright red or crimson. Once again, yellow for some of the ornaments. Creating a darker effect on the ornaments to create an impression of shade created by the pine tree leaves on the surface of the ornament. Repeat this effect on the other colored ornaments and just use a color that is slightly darker than the original color of the ornament. And as for this particular ornament, it is supposed to be silver in color, and I am attempting to achieve this color by painting it as a light gray. And to get this light gray, I am just mixing the cobalt blue with a little bit of burnt sienna. Try mixing these two colors until you get a light gray tone. So I'm painting in the gray tone that I mixed earlier, also leaving out some white areas as a highlight. And if you notice, as I painted in this color, there are some dark dots left on the two ornaments. This is as a result of the paper chipped, which I mentioned earlier when I removed or peeled off the masking liquid. I hope you don't have the same mishap as mine, as it is a little frustrating to see that unsmooth surface, but whatever it is, I will attempt to save my painting. So adding on a little bit hint of yellow on the silver ornament as a glow effect, since this is a silver or metal colored ornament, definitely there will be a reflection from the other objects. Now adding a hint of red as a reflection from the red colored ornament. Right now I am painting the remaining ornaments fully with the gold colored watercolor. Now to create more glow effect, I am simply going to glaze the gold colored watercolor pigment onto the other ornaments, and this glazing method is only applied on a dry surface, so make sure the painting is fully dry and then glaze on it. And here's an up close of the gold colored watercolor. Hope you can see the shimmer on it. So just quickly glaze the gold colored pigment onto the ornaments. Well, the shimmer effect may not be that obvious in this video, but as you glaze it on the colored ornaments, it definitely adds more vibrance to the original color. So moving on, I am going to apply the same gold pigment onto the leaves of the pine tree, and I'm using a script brush for this process. So make sure you use a very fine and long tip for this painting. So keep making those fine strokes of the gold pigment to the very end of the Christmas tree. And I think by now you would have noticed that the entire pine tree or Christmas tree looks very glowing. And right now I am painting the head of the ornament, the tip that holds the ornament to the string, with some light gray tone. Not to forget the gold shimmer effect to be applied on the silver or metal colored ornament. Applying some retouches onto the pine tree. Now to add some character to some of the ornaments, I am painting the string that holds the ornament with some white gouache. adding some highlights using the same white gouache. So if you're happy with this glow effect look, you can leave it as it is, but I am going to show another step to enhance the glow effect by using soft pastels. I'm using bright red and applying it onto the yellow colored ornaments to create a reflection of the red ornaments beside it. Orange for the red colored ornaments. So once slightly applying the soft pastels, just dab them or lightly blend them in to give them a softer look. Pink or magenta for the silver colored ornament. And I'm also applying some soft pastel onto the leaves of the pine trees, and the color that I'm using is a very bright green or light green. Also some white colored pastel to retouch those highlight areas that have lightened during the painting process. I'm going to use this bright yellow pastel to enlighten the color of the background. You don't need too much of the soft pastel pigment. It's just to enlighten the watercolor painting. As soon as I blended in the yellow color, you can notice that the entire painting looks bright, as though there's a light behind the Christmas tree. I'm also adding a little bit hint of the bright red, and I'm trying to blend that in using a Q-tip, simply because this is a watercolor paper which has a rougher surface compared to a pastel paper. And I feel both this yellow and red pastel color adds balance to the entire painting, since our ornaments also consist of these two colors. Lastly, I'm going to create some splatters using the gold color watercolor pigment using a rigger brush. Just tap on the brush just like how I am showing in this video, and ensure your color mix consistency is runny so that you can easily create the splatters as you tap on your brush. I also decided to use a yellow pigment to create the splatter effect. And with this, we are done with the painting of this glowing Christmas tree. So let's peel off the masking tape and find out how it looks like under the light. And as I tilt the painting, I'm sure you can notice those shimmer effect. Observing it from a different angle, you can notice the shimmer effect on the ornaments of the Christmas tree. So I hope you find this entire painting tutorial enjoyable, and if you really do like and share it with your family and friends. Don't forget to attempt painting this. And if you're already a subscriber, I thank you a lot for your support. And for those who are not yet a subscriber, I hope you find my channel interesting, and do hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon so that you get notification of my latest videos. So see you again on my channel. Bye.